All right, welcome everyone and happy spring. Spring means one important thing to vacation rental world, and that is, boy, it's time to start thinking about high season coming up. So that's really what we're going to approach today. We're going to talk a lot about staffing and the challenges that property managers are facing. My name is Gerard Lester. I'm responsible for partnerships at Extenteam, and I'm going to bring in two people that I've gotten to know quite well over the last year. Ari from Extenteam and Steve from Better Talent. Come on in, guys. Welcome.
Thanks for having us, Gerard.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Good to see you. Yeah. And so, as we talked about in the past, these are two companies that are focused very much on staffing and the challenges that vacation rental managers are having in this environment, right? This is a really challenging environment to hire people and to hire the right people and to retain those people and to do it economically. So really what we're going to talk about today is optimizing our largest expense in the vacation rental world, which is our staffing, how to rethink that staffing, what are the best practices for retaining people. So these are two guys who know what they're talking about. Ari and Steve are veterans of the industry, but they've also been in your shoes. These are people who have deep experience as property managers in the short-term rental space. And so I want to introduce them. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself and your experience in the industry and what you're doing with Better Talent?
Absolutely. Thanks, Gerard. I've been in the industry for about 26 years now. I've spent 20 of those years as a vacation rental manager, scaled a company from 0 to 400 properties over about 2 decades. I've had a development company, a real estate company, an interior design company, also developed a technology platform in the space. I'm the past vice president and president of VRPM over a 5-year period. So I've been super involved in all aspects of the industry. For the last 6 years, I've been super focused on the people side of the business. And a little over 3 years ago, I launched Better Talent, and Better Talent is a company focused on helping companies in this space identify and hire the best people. So love this topic today, obviously, talk about it every day, all day, and I'm excited to share it.
Steve is your favorite white hat at any VRMA event. You can always find him that way. And, you're going to see Extenteam and Better Talent usually in the same area at these events. And so part of what we're doing is talking about the things we do that are similar and where we work to get best together and how we've started to work together and partner as two different organizations. Ari, tell us a little bit about your background and the origins of Extenteam and where we're going now.
Absolutely. I got into the vacation rental business by mistake when I was getting my industrial engineering degree back in 2009. Started a property management company. And while I was running my property management company, one of my challenges was finding talented individuals to help scale my company. So for the past 4 years, very similar to Steve, I've been focusing on helping other vacation rental operators growing their operations by helping them with their staffing needs.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah, like most of us, we accidentally got into this business. And then we found out one that is fantastic. We love it. There's great things to do here, but there's also huge challenges. One of the things that we notice about staffing is that it takes up a huge amount of energy and a huge amount of our resources. So I think the first thing we want to talk about is this idea of how to optimize our staffing, how to optimize that big part of our business. Steve, go ahead and talk a little bit about your background and your ideas around this.
Yeah, so 6 years ago when I started consulting, I say I'm a recovering property manager. So 6 years ago, after I got out of being a day-to-day operator in the business, I started looking at other companies as a consultant. And one of the first things we would do is look at the profit and loss statement of that company. It was pretty clear very quickly, just like with my company, the cost of staffing was huge. But most companies, when they think about that, they think about payroll. And what I started to realize is that not only do you look at payroll, but you look at maybe independent contractors, consultants, VAs or global talent, and the whole cost of all of that and how much of the P&L that is. And roughly 60 and sometimes 70% of the cost structure inside of a VRM was people. And, we at events, we would talk about our cost structure around marketing, and we would optimize that. You might have a building cost and you would look at that. But if you look at those costs in relative terms to what we're talking about today, they're actually quite small. And yet we put so much of our time and resources into it as an industry. And so I started to look at it and go, okay, I think we should help companies optimize this expense and not just look at it. And a lot of people think that Better Talent is a recruiter or a recruiting company. We're actually a talent optimization company. And so we're looking at holistically all of those different components I mentioned, and how can we help a company best address getting everything they need to get done in this industry in the most efficient way possible. Sometimes that means an in-office full-time employee. Sometimes it's a part-time, sometimes it's a contractor, a consultant. We work with Extenteam. We are not a competitor with Extenteam in that regard, because a lot of times it's global talent, right? And so we're looking at that, and we're building out what we call the people stack, which is different than your tech stack. It's really all of those different components that make up that people stack. And so we look at an org chart differently than maybe a typical company might, and address all those different components in the most efficient way possible. So that's kind of our view around this.
Yeah, Steve, I love the way that you bring efficiency to the people stack, to staffing, in the same way that technology, that the technology we've seen develop in this industry approaches a lot of the other problems. Two things that you mentioned. You mentioned global talent, and you mentioned VAs, right? And this is an area where Extenteam has really started. Ari, can you talk a little bit about how those factors or those ideas can help optimize staffing?
Sure, and while I do that, if you'll allow me, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Extenteam.
Great.
So when I was on HomeAway's Software Division's advisory board, a fellow property manager approached me, and he was having challenges with his churn, with his turnover on his frontline employees in Breckenridge in Colorado. And and he asked for help. And I had team members from outsourced team members for my own company, so I helped them out to find those individuals. And he was pleasantly surprised, and he's like, why are you like not telling other people about this? Like this is a game changer. Like I was skeptical about it, but this is perfect. These people are educated, they're passionate. That's how we really I got into Extenteam. And we are the first staffing as a service company in the vacation rental industry. I think our businesses complement each other with Better Talent. Steve primarily focuses, he does a phenomenal job with his people stack. If for those who are like meeting him for the first time, please schedule a call with them and have them do like a free people stack analysis to see how your team is formulated and whether you have any areas of improvement. And with us, we focus on outsourced remote talent, primarily on functions that could be done remotely. And I'm proud to say that we work with over 120 companies now. And initially, some of those people were skeptical, but once they work with us, they really see the value of working with a global talent pool that is committed to taking your business to the next level.
Yeah, it's really changing the landscape. It's certainly what I've noticed in my time with Extenteam and meeting the talent that we have in various locations, different countries, that they are passionate, smart, intelligent, problem solvers. This is so much different than an answering service. So that brings up my next question is like, how do you decide how to make that right blend? How do you supplement a local team with professional global talent, Ari?
That's an excellent question. I think there are like some positions that are better off to be kept stateside. Even at Extenteam, most of our partner success, partnerships, accounting roles are kept stateside just because we believe that those relationships could be built better, like with people that are based here in the States, right? However, on the other side, rather than having your phone calls go to voicemail, or rather than your property managers spreading themselves too thin while they're like dealing with physical issues in the field, the quality of service that they can provide over the phone or to the messages wouldn't be perfect, right? So in my opinion, separating those could be beneficial. Most of our partners, most of our clients use us for guest services or reservations related positions. Some are cross-trained. We can also help with operational coordination, maintenance coordination, housekeeping coordination. Then we also have like a accounting services team that helps our property management managers with their trust accounting and operational accounting needs, which is not something that a lot of property managers enjoy doing.
Yeah, and to clarify, one thing that people may have questions about with these services, right? With both of the services, is do Extenteam employees work for the Extenteam, or do they work for the property managers that we work with? And how does better talent engage on a long-term basis with their clients? And so, Steve, go ahead and maybe talk a little bit about that, about how you engage with clients and what the best practices are around that. And then Ari, talk about a little bit about how Extenteam service works.
Well, generally, when a client or potential client reaches out to us, they have an immediate need in most cases. So they're looking for a GM, looking for a director of ops, or a hospitality or a housekeeping manager, that type of thing. And we address that particular need first. You can work with us on a single hire basis, but most of our clients work with us on a subscription basis. It's a very efficient model relative to any type of recruiter that you're going to look at. And the first thing we do is go into talent strategy. And so we look at the current stack, if you will, of all of those things I talked about before. And again, look for opportunities where we can optimize that organizational chart, or what we call the people stack, to add in something like global talent to pull in, and where we might have been looking for a full-time employee that might have cost $40,000 or $50,000, and it's a lot less costly to look at it from a global talent perspective. And then obviously we're just looking to fill all the needs in the most efficient way possible. We handle everything from optimizing the job ads, job descriptions, filtering applicants, and then driving applicant flow. So those are kind of the ways that we engage with the client.
Great. And Ari, how does Extenteam services work in that regard, right? How does somebody work with Extenteam and use the talent that Extenteam brings?
So one common misperception is people think that we're like an answering service, an after-hours service, or a call center, right? We're neither one of those. We're a staffing as a service company. So what we do is we help our clients find the right talent based on their needs. We not only help them with the recruiting, but we also help our clients with the management of those team members that are primarily like working on guest services or reservations related functions. And we also handle the HR aspects of employing someone from a different part of the world, so that you deal with like a stateside company, and you don't have to deal with the technicalities and legal burdens of employing someone overseas. Try, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
No longer. I'm not on mute any longer. Steve, talk a little bit about efficiency and how really focusing on your staffing in a very systematic way. And by the way, have you trademarked People Stack yet?
I have not.
Okay.
It's been out there and used for other things, so we don't have an intent to trademark it. But I just think it's a good way to look at that big cost structure, right, as opposed to just calling it a organizational chart. As far as how do we look to optimize, so many times a company will call us and they might need or think they need a full-time revenue manager, for example, and they're at 75 properties. And, there's probably a scenario where you do need that at, really scaled high-end properties or whatever, but a lot of times they don't. And so in those cases, we will outsource that or look to outsource that to one of the contractors that we work with in that regard, whether that's with Extenteam or US based. So a lot of times it can be a contractor, a consultant that we can do that with on a much more efficient basis. We also look at the current payroll, and a lot of times we find that companies are overpaying for roles. Doesn't sound like it today with inflation and everything, but if you look at the overarching components, sometimes they are. And so we're looking to make sure that whatever we are paying for a particular role, it's in line with that particular market and then the industry as a whole. and that we're finding those efficiencies throughout the organization where they can get things done in the most efficient way possible. And a lot of times that means global talent. Sometimes it's a consultant, a contractor, or, you know, so many times we've got somebody doing too many jobs at once, and it needs to be divided up into different ways. So there's a lot of different ways that we can optimize that. One of the things I'm excited about is we've been able to look at over 200 of our clients' organizational charts. So we've seen all these different models, and we're starting to see different trends in the industry and ways to optimize that. And we want to give that back to the industry because, you know, it's not getting any easier to do this business. and there's a lot of competition coming in that's doing it with a lot of technology. And we want to do that too. So a traditional recruiter might say, hey, we want you to hire as many full-time employees as possible because that's how they get paid. We don't do that. We actually want to look at it in a way that we optimize that cost structure for you. And having been a manager for 20 years, I know how challenging that can be, and also how many mistakes you can make. Hiring mistakes, the wrong person in the wrong seat is just a tremendous impact on the bottom line. And so that's what we're looking to do, is try to, you know, eliminate those bad impacts, optimize the overall cost structure, but also get things done at a very high level for the guests, for the owners, for the team, and for the company.
Great. Now, Ari, a little bit about efficiency and the economic impact that hiring outsourced remote offers people.
Sure. I guess like most people, when they think about outsourcing, the first thing that they think about is, oh, cheap resource overseas, right? And people are really focused on the cost. How much does it cost? We really don't want to deal with people who are like price sensitive, like as a company, because we really care about providing an excellent guest experience and to our partner clients' guests. And when you think about it, like a frontline employee, like at a property management company, like is probably getting paid close to minimum wage, and they're very likely to churn unless there's like good growth opportunities. Or in some cases, these are like students or like temp workers that are here for the season. They were great, but next season they no longer want to come back, and all of a sudden you have to train someone new. What we do is we really find college-educated individuals who worked at five-star hotels or vacation rental companies before in their own respective markets, put them through like a training program of our own, what we call Extenteam University, train them on differences between wherever they're based at versus the cultural issues and nuances of the American culture. US 101 is what we call it, right? And when you look about it, sure, like there are like some cost savings that are associated with it, but most of our partners like working with us and a global talent force because those people appreciate working for like an American company. They're not going to quit on you because they're looking for, because it was just a side gig for them. No, like those are like lifelong career paths. And we have some individuals that are on our team that have been working with us for over 11 years. So that shows commitment. And I think like that's one area that we can really exploit global talent. We have
retention really does bring incredible opportunities economically for a property manager, the way they don't have to constantly rehire. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Steve, because I know you've talked about this before, and that is, you know, people in this industry have traditionally hired local. I want people in the office. I want people to be able to talk to those people. Tell me a little bit about your understanding of demographics and why this is more and more challenging and maybe not even necessary.
Yeah, so one of the best things that happened from COVID, I'll just say out loud, is that those managers that would not under any circumstance hire remote in the past, we're almost forced to do it. We all had to, you know, buckle, you know, all work from home for a period of time. And suddenly some of those managers that would never do it before all of a sudden go, hey, this is not so bad. And I used to have 100 employees, and I can tell you what, I didn't know what they were all doing at any given time. None of us did, right? And so just because they're in the office doesn't mean you're like watching over them. Honestly, you really need to have strong KPIs. And that's another thing that happened during that period is companies started to realize that they need to focus on the key performance indicators of that individual. and that allowed them to do remote. And so whether that's remote here in the US or remote overseas, it's a much more cost efficient model. I had a huge office. You don't need to have as big of an office. Better Talent today, by the way, we're fully remote. We have 15 people on our team here in the US, and none of them have an office, right? And so it works really well because of the fact that today with technology, you can monitor what everybody's doing. You can know if they're doing a good thing. The thing you got to do with that is really work on culture. And doing a remote culture is more challenging. But with like what we're doing right now, everybody knows how to use Zoom these days. You can do things to still have that strong culture with the remote team. The other thing we saw during COVID, because everybody can work remote in some of these really challenging markets, which is most of the markets where vacation rental management companies are, those individuals that used to have to almost were forced to work in a hospitality company or a local business now have opportunities remote themselves. And so the talent pool, or what we would call a talent puddle in these markets, has gotten even thinner due to the fact that they have these types of opportunities. So you really have to be aggressive, and you have to understand that so that you can get as many people in the market to know about your opportunity if you are hiring local, but also consider more remote opportunities on a long-term basis. This is not going away. The desire to work from home is not going away. It's only going to get bigger. So you've got to figure out how to do it and do it well, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly remote work is accepted, much more accepted. And I think technologically, we're able to connect so much better in much more efficient ways. Speaking of technology, and this is my next question for Ari, ChatGPT, how is it changing? How is AI changing guest services?
That's an excellent question, and I wish I had like a magic crystal ball in front of me that would allow me to answer that question. But one thing that I can say for sure is, this is my personal opinion, I think metaverse, like, and cryptocurrencies, Web3, like, those are like big buzzwords without much context into it. But I can almost guarantee you that like ChatGPT and MML, machine model learning, would probably replace a lot of entry-level positions, right? So I don't want to give too much spoilers into it, but since most of our workforce is working on guest communications, we're working on building our own technology that would allow our clients to become more efficient with their entry-level communications. Hey, like, what's the Wi-Fi code? Can I check in early? Sort of like basic questions that property managers are sick and tired of responding to it. Because the truth is, these days, like, guests don't read it, right? It may be in your app. You may have like emailed them like all that information in a check-in email, maybe 3 times by email, by OTA, by text. Truth is, no one reads. People just want to like grab their phone, text someone, or call someone, ask the question over and over again. And I think machine learning would really enable to automate some of those low-hanging fruit. And that would, in my opinion, allow property managers to pull their team members to work on more revenue generating or more relationship building type of activities, right? Making sure that the guests are actually being taken care of, meeting like important guests in person, rather than dealing with, hey, like, you need to like get onto this network or that network. Solve bigger issues and add more value to your property management company.
Great.
Not
Okay,
sure.
I want to get to a few questions. Thanks, Ari. I want to get to a few of the questions that are coming in from our participants. Thank you very much. So what are the typical responsibilities that you see PMs outsource? Property management.
I think we've already covered it, like, but it's mostly guest services and reservations and some sort of guest communication. At larger companies, we have dedicated teams that are, chat specific, OTA specific, or like voice specific. At smaller companies with less than 100 units, probably like cross-trained team members that are doing the OTA messages, phone calls, text messages, maybe helping with the housekeeping schedule, maybe acting as a dispatch or like an operations coordinator. Like, if there's like an issue that the guest reports, they pick up the phone, call the maintenance people, open a main work order, and so on. Trying to think what else. accounting is becoming more of a need from our existing client base. It's not something that we explicitly wanted to get in, but our clients are having a lot of issues with their bookkeeping, and I think we're providing a lot of value to our clients on the trust accounting side of things as well. Jared, can you think of any other positions?
I mean, it's always amazing that people say, I didn't think it was going to work, but I can't live without it now. Right. And so that's always been really the really rewarding thing that we hear from our partners. And Steve, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Steve. What are the really rewarding things that you hear from your partners that say, well, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd looked at my people stack earlier. This is really helping my business.
Yeah, one of the things that we do is we do psychometric testing and cognitive testing. And so it's personality testing, and then also seeing how quickly a person can adapt to change. And, those that weren't doing that as part of their hiring process prior, were hiring people what I call blind, meaning you're looking at somebody and you're looking at the resume, you're doing an interview, and maybe they're really good at interviewing. And we've all been smoked in an interview if you hired people, and have been hiring people for 33 years. And it's happened a lot, right? And so the reason why we do that type of testing is we really want to make sure that that person is aligned with the role. When they're happier in the role, and they're more effective in the role, and they tend to stick around longer. And we do that. We even work with the Extenteam in that regard on their team. So we believe that, everybody should be designed for the role, if you will. And so personality testing is a key piece of that. Also, I mentioned cognitive. This tells us how fast that person can learn new things and adapt to change. And in this industry, there's a lot of change. There's going to be a lot more change on a go forward basis. You better be able to adapt within a reasonable amount of cognitive abilities, depending on that specific role. And so I think those two things for us. And then the other thing we do is really just drive as much applicant flow as we possibly can, so that we're picking from a broader subset of people, especially when you're looking for somebody that has experience in the space. And so we've built a massive database of pretty much everybody we can find that has some type of STR, vacation rental experience, so we can choose from that if they're a domestic individual. And then we work with Extenteam when they're global, because they take them through the training that Ari mentioned before.
Great. Here's a question for you, Ari. I think this is a good one for you. How does a company best support a new VA on those off hours? Do they need to have a local staff member available still for a period of time in case they have a situation beyond what they are capable of handling? And I will categorize it this way and say, we consider people team members. We don't really call them virtual assistants, because they're very specific. They have specific duties and are recruited for those specific duties. So maybe talk a little bit about how we onboard and support, Ari.
So I guess, to answer that question, it really depends on the company and how good your documentation is, right? I'm not going to lie, the first few weeks are going to be a little bit challenging, because the new team member is going through an onboarding process. And we worked with companies that had 78 units. We worked with companies that have over 1,600 units. And typically what we've seen is larger companies, since they have to work in larger teams, they have their documentation in better shape than some of their smaller counterparts. So with larger companies, or companies that have their processes and their information documented, it's not really necessary to have that local staff member. We at Extenteam, we provide a nesting coach to all of our newbies for the first 30 days. But most of our clients also make sure that they're available, whether it's through Slack, Teams, text message, email, whatever it is that you prefer to use, so that these exceptional circumstances could be handled in a timely manner. It's just like hiring someone locally, honestly, right? If you hire a local person to be on call, it's the same thing. You need to make sure that there's someone that can help them if there's an escalated issue. I hope that answers.
No, absolutely. But no, I would also say too that we have a customer success side of our operation that really helps people move forward. Hey, Steve, I've got actually a question for you. I've been following Steve for quite some time, so you have a follower here, Steve. This is good. Your job postings seems that the majority of the job positions in the United States. Would you feel comfortable with staffing in Canada?
Absolutely. We actually have both Canadian clients, and we have people in Canada that we source for some companies that would like it. So absolutely, we do Canada, we do a little bit of Central America, some of the islands, that type of thing. We're not in Europe yet, but our plan is to go into Europe next year. But certainly Canada.
Great. You know, we were scheduled for half an hour, so if you have to go, we really appreciate you being here. And in the chat area are ways that you can contact both Extenteam and Better Talent for more information. I highly encourage you to do so. We all know that everybody's up against it right now, trying to figure out how they're going to staff well for the upcoming season and still be economical about it. And so thanks for that. A couple more questions. Let's see. Here's one. I understand that outsourced staffing can't deliver housekeepers. It's true. People ask us that all the time. But are outsourced remote staff able to help coordinate cleaning and maintenance in an efficient way?
I'll let Ari answer that.
I think it's an Ari question.
Yeah.
I mean, I can answer that a little bit as well. That again, that people are the partners we work with are pretty amazed at how on top of it that the talent we bring is, that the Extenteam team members are. It's not just that, they're also concerned. They want to do a good job. Again, they're not just an answering service. So the key is creating your own processes and training as an organization so that everybody is on the same page and working through the same systems.
And I may just jump back in. Sorry, I was trying to find the question on the question board. What one of our clients did is he operates like two different businesses, one in Oregon and one in Utah. And they had two different housekeeping teams, two different PMSs, and they realized housekeeping managers spend a lot of time with the scheduling because people call out sick, people don't want to do specific jobs, like whatever. So they hired someone through us as a maintenance / housekeeping dispatch. All that person does is literally open work orders on the PMS based on guest feedback and based on employee feedback. And making sure that those work orders are closed. And that person was also responsible to schedule the housekeeping for the following day. I believe that person is working at the later part of the day. So like when reservations change and people extend or ask for late checkouts, that person is responsible for making sure that the housekeeping schedule is updated. So yeah, we can absolutely help coordinate cleaning and maintenance in an efficient way with a remote team member.
Great. Okay, I think we're just about done. And so I want kind of one more question for you guys, and that is just from an industry point of view, what does 2023 look like for staffing? The Better Talent job board just came out this morning. I saw it. So there's still opportunities out there. So from your point of view, Steve, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are hearing about these layoffs from a lot of the technology companies and even some of the larger companies here in the vacation rental space. But the reality is that unemployment is at an all-time low. It hasn't even bumped up hardly at all. It's not having a significant impact on overall applicant flow, especially in these markets where us vacation rental companies are at. And so I think it's going to continue to be a challenging market. You have to be aggressive in attracting talent. You need to make sure you have a strong employer brand. And it's literally going to be a talent war, not just in 23, but going forward. This is not going away. A lot of people thought it was a COVID issue. It was not. It's a demographic issue. And it's just a shift. And it's something that we have to deal with. And it's something that really need to pay attention to in 2023, but all the way forward as well. I as a former property manager know how many different priorities that companies have. This one is a critical one. And if I made the biggest mistakes I ever made were around staffing, and here I am trying to really help solve that problem because I know how big those mistakes were. So you got to really pay attention to this thing. Tech is great, marketing is important, business development, all those components, but make sure you have the right mix of people to do what you need to do.
All right, last word from you.
And I guess from where I stand, I totally second everything Steve said. In my opinion, we really need to do what we haven't done in the past and really tap into untapped markets, just because it's getting more and more difficult to find people who are willing and able to do the job. And we need to invest heavily in our own brands, whether it's a property management brand or if you're a vendor out there joining us, we really need to invest in our employer brands And we also need to invest in our teams. One thing at Extenteam, what we're doing is we are flying a known trainer and a coach from the vacation rental space to the Philippines in May to train all of our team members in person, right? So we're trying to really gap the bridge between different continents and make sure that someone from the States actually goes there and trains the team members that are working overseas on best practices. And training is going to be super important in 2023 and upcoming years.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for adding voice to the challenges that our property managers have out there. We all know what it's like. They don't want to be cleaning rooms. They don't want to be answering phones. They'd rather be running and forming the business and growing their businesses. So whatever we can do to help is where we're at. Again, thank you guys for taking time, and all of our participants, thank you so much for attending. You'll receive a follow-up email with more information about how to contact Extenteam and Better Talent. And I very much encourage you to contact these organizations and talk to these excellent people about your businesses. That's what they're really concerned about. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
All right, bye
Take
now.
care, everybody.